Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Todd Klindt's SharePoint Netcast number 192, recorded live on Monday, March 17th, 2014. I am your host, and I am completely full of lime jello today. Since I don't drink, I didn't do the green beer thing. Lime jello is my weapon of choice on St. Patrick's Day. I'm completely full of lime jello, and I am your host. I am Todd Klindt. This whole thing would not be possible without the support of Rackspace. You can go out to sharepoint.rackspace.com and find out about all the great SharePoint offerings we have and just all kinds of other great stuff there. And if you go to SharePoint, if you scroll down on sharepoint.rackspace.com a little bit, and you will find a link that says Super Fanatiblaster. That is very work-related. Very important. Your boss would be glad that you looked at it. And I happen to be wearing my Fanatiblaster shirt right now. We were giving those away at the SharePoint Conference. So it's a great little game, just kind of a fun promo thing we did. Our SharePoint devs wrote all that. I haven't got a clue what it's got to do with SharePoint, but there's some fun folks, and they did all that. Even the music was played by one of our SharePoint consultants, Tavis. So go out there, put your high scores on there, tweet them out, tell your friends. You'll love it. It's a good time. But that's at sharepoint.rackspace.com. That one is at /Fanatiblaster. Tell all your friends. It'll be a great time. Production notes. So, anybody hear anything about any production notes last week? Yeah, last week was a mess. And I think probably the worst thing that happened last week, so a bunch of stuff, the chat room was offline because Ars Technica was upgrading their chat server, and they did it in the middle of my netcast. Very inconsiderate of them. So the chat room was offline for probably a half an hour, and then my recording program seized up and I had to reboot, and just terrible. Somebody burnt my toast upstairs, and the tire went out of one of my car tires. Air went out of my tires. It was just a rotten night. But I think the worst thing of all, the very worst part of the whole episode, is that I was so ruffled from all of the mess. Now I understand I looked calm and cool and composed on camera, but underneath I was just all bubbly and nervous. I forgot the shameless self-promotion part last week. Can you believe it? Oh my God, how embarrassing. And I know that's the whole reason you guys show up. I know that's the whole reason that you suffer through the end of this thing, is just to see the shameless self-promotion part. So I think I'll do it twice this week. I'll do the shameless self-promotion part and then just do it right again. So you'll get your fix. So I apologize to all those people who tuned in to Netcast 191, begging to hear what I'd be doing next, and then I just forgot all about it. I apologize. 1,000 apologies. I feel horrible. But throughout all that, last week I mixed a few things up. So I did the thing again with the lights. You can kind of see that in the background. That was just to kind of give a little bit of contrast to the background and all that, because the chair is black and sometimes I wear dark clothes. And so the light kind of helps with that. I'm still playing with that a little bit. You can see there's a little more contour this week than last week. There'll be a little more next week. I got some new stuff. But also got these lights and kind of playing with them to see how they work best. Again, a big thanks to Jack Frew on that. He's the guy that him and I have been talking about putting lights up here for like a year. And he finally just bought the lights and said, here, take them home and try them. So now I'm going to end up buying a bunch of lights on Amazon. But I hope that kind of helps with the video a little bit. I know the video downloads are a pretty small chunk of this, but I want that to look a little better. Jack's in the chat room now, so everybody thank him. So Naomi in the chat room is saying that I moved the camera. I didn't move it much. If I did, and also the live camera looks a little different than the recorded camera. So that's the interesting thing. I haven't moved anything. I mean, I've got Lori's been here. She's seen this. I've got this huge desk that butts up against the wall. Haven't moved anything. Haven't touched anything. But that big black thing in the back just threw off everybody's depth perception. I was talking to Jack about this, and he's like, "Hey, I got these lights, and you can put them up." And I'm like, "Man, I don't think there's any room because that wall is right behind me." And he's like, "No way." I'm like, "Yeah, I can touch it if I want to," and I'm sitting in my chair. He's like, "That wall looks like it's like 6 foot away." I'm like, "Nope, that wall is right here." I mean, I could literally, just touch it. So getting the light there helps a little bit. get that depth of field down. I'm gonna have to get a couple more lights because Jack got a couple of different. One of them just went out. Looks like the battery went dead on one of our lights. But I'm gonna have to play those lights a little bit and get that figured out a little bit better. I think we're on the right track. Now you guys are saying you can see the back monitor a little bit better, so that's good. More boring technical crap. When I do this, I'm actually using two different webcams. So one webcam on the right here, my right, your left, I guess, is the one that I stream with, which is the one you guys are seeing now. So that one may have moved because I don't honestly pay a whole lot of attention to that one. But then the recording one, those of you who aren't suffering through this thing live, that's a completely different camera, so it's a completely different picture. But for those of you who watch it live, if I don't have the camera set up well, let me know, beforehand, before we go live, and I would be happy to tweak all that for you, because I can see now it goes a little bit like there. What I'm really trying to do is that sheet that's behind me it's like a half an inch wider than the view on my recording camera, so I was trying to get everything lined up so you can't see the wall behind it. But always in the chat room when I go live a few minutes beforehand, let me know if I need to move that camera, and I would be happy to do it. So a few things going on with the video, trying to get some of that stuff nailed down a little bit better, make it look a little bit better. Got some other ideas, but I think the lighting is probably the good first step, and then getting better background. The second thing is the sound. Now, for the last couple of weeks, I've had a cold, so the sound has been kind of weird anyway. But Mario, I've been working with him. When I edited Netcast 191, I did some audio tweaking. The technical term for what I did was I added compression, which makes the loud sounds less loud and the quiet sounds more loud to try to get less variation in volume. Had a couple people mention that when I was at SharePoint Conference. They came up and mentioned it when they were telling me that they watched the Netcast, that the sound needed to be fixed. And one of those people was Mario, and he actually, not only did he complain to me and tell me that my audio sounded bad, but he actually offered to help me fix it, which was nice. So 191, I tried a little bit of that, and then Mario listened to it and told me how much it sucked less, but could be even better. So Mario gave me some new settings, and I'll try those when I render this one out. So by all means, let me know. Send me a tweet at Todd Klindt. Send me an email, todd.klindt@rexbase.com. Tell me what you think of the audio and video changes. Trying to make this thing a little better. Lord knows you guys suffer enough with this. There's no need for you to suffer if the audio's bad or anything like that, or the video. So I'm doing what I can. Another thing that I'm probably going to be doing is dropping the video back to 480p. It was 720p. Those files are just getting huge. I rendered 191 out at 720p, and the thing was almost a gig. That's ridiculous. So I'm going to start scaling that back to 480p. Again, there's not a lot of people that download the video, so it's probably not a huge deal, but I thought I'd mention that. And as always, you can go out to youtube.com/ToddKlindtNetcast, and you can watch them there too. And YouTube, renders them out in a bunch of different things, and you can full screen them and all that kind of stuff. So check that out. But again, going to be doing some tweaking with the video, so let me know what you think about all that. Now we will drive on with the topics. And there have been a bunch of things going on the last couple of weeks. Had a couple of things I didn't get to talk about last week that I'm going to talk about this week. I wanted to start off with a SharePoint Conference related link. The SharePoint Conference is great. Like half the people that are in the chat room now were at the SharePoint Conference, and I got to meet them and hang out with them, and it was awesome. Loved it. Loved every one of you. Smooches all the way around, every one of you. But one of the problems that we have when we go to these conferences is there are too many sessions and not enough time. Or there'll be things like our upgrade session, I believe, on Wednesday was at the same time as Lori Gowan's content type session, so you can't go to both. Everybody that asked me, I sent them to Lori's session. But those people, after watching Lori's session, probably were curious how big of a train wreck our upgrade session was, but they couldn't go to it. Well, shortly after the conference got over, Microsoft put all the videos up, so you can go out to Channel 9 and and watch the videos. There's a bunch of PowerPoints and all that too. And so I've downloaded a bunch because there's a bunch of sessions that I wanted to go to and couldn't. But it's become like a thing now. Every time there's a conference, somebody writes a PowerShell script to go download all the videos. So it's happened for Tech Ed, the last SharePoint conference. Excuse me. And this conference is no different. So we have got that, and there are a bunch of these scripts that came out. I don't want to say my favorite because I haven't actually used all of it yet, but Vlad Katrinescu from SharePoint Community wrote one, and it's out on TechNet, and it downloads all of the sessions videos for SharePoint Conference and all of the PowerPoint presentations if they're out there. Now, I know you're probably saying to yourself, but I didn't go to the SharePoint Conference and I didn't pay the money, and I really want to see one of these things. You're in luck. It's all free. It's all open. So if you go out to TechNet, the link is going to be in the show notes here, or it's in the chat room. Go download Vlad's script, and if you want to just run it, you can, or you can go to Channel 9 and go to Conferences and SharePoint Conference. But Vlad's script will go out, it'll walk through all the sessions, groups them by folder, gives the session name and all that kind of stuff. Very well done. But be very careful with this script. It works almost too well. If you run that script and walk off, it will download 70 gig or so. Now, in the days of like 4 terabyte drives, 70 gig is no big deal, but I'm running on a Surface Pro 2. 70 gig, no, I think I might have 70 gig left on my C drive or my D drive, but I'm not sure. So be very careful when you run this, that wherever you run it from has more than 70 gig free. And to Vlad's, to give him some credit, to his credit, he does mention that in here, so it's not a big surprise. But I know how it is. You get to a web page and you're like, words, blah. Oh, download, and off you go. So make sure that you do that. It's 70 gig, and there's a lot of great stuff in there. So thanks to Vlad. Vlad's done a bunch of stuff. He's part of the whole, SharePoint 24 conference is going on. He's behind SharePoint Community. Finally got to meet the guy at the SharePoint conference, so that was nice. We've been, tweeting and emailing, that kind of stuff. But that's a good script out there. There's other ones out there. They work well too. You can use that one. If you don't want all 70 gig though, go to, I think it's channel9.msdn.com, and in the title bar up there they've got conferences, SharePoint conferences there, and you can sort by speaker, by topic, by day, whatever, and just download the ones that you want. So there's a lot of options out there, a lot of great content out there. I know for the last week or so I've been having random SharePoint conference sessions playing on my TV up there because it's all good stuff. So again, thanks to Vlad for that. Another free thing. This is like the week of free stuff. This is so cool. And this just happened today. Now, one of the big tech blogs, The Verge, mentioned that this was going to happen last week, but they kind of do rumory stuff, so you never really know. And I never trust that stuff till it actually happens. But today, Microsoft announced that they are releasing OneNote for the Mac, but that's not the big part. OneNote for the Mac is released, and it's free. Free as in beer, not free as in speech, free as in beer. You can download OneNote for the Mac, so that's pretty awesome. And also they released the word for this stuff now is freemium version of OneNote for Windows. So freemium means that the app is free, but you got to buy stuff inside of the app. So basically the OneNote for Windows that's free will only save to SkyDrive. If that's not a big deal to you, you can get OneNote for free. I use OneNote, just a whole bunch. All of my notes and everything for this Netcast for the last 5 years are in OneNote. And just everything, all my work stuff, everything I do is in OneNote. I couldn't live without it. So if you're looking for that thing, if you always find yourself opening up like Notepad and looking for stuff that way, try OneNote. it's a pretty good, and now it's free, Mac, Windows, and all that. So I highly recommend it, but it's free, so go out there and get it. I'm not sure what the link is. The link that I put in the chat room now is just an article. I don't know what the actual download link is to it. But good stuff. Try it out. It's free. I think you'll love it. It does all kinds of amazing things. Now that we're talking about free, we got all the free script from Vlad that downloads all of the free content from the SharePoint conference. We got free OneNote. Another thing that came out today, I saw this on WP Central, is Microsoft is releasing a product called Office Scanner for Windows Phone. And what Office Scanner is it lets you do scan things like receipts and all that kind of stuff, and it puts them right into OneNote for you. So that's pretty awesome. I know that when I travel, I've got to do expense reports and all that. They're a huge pain. I hate doing it. So what I do, and I've done this for years now, is every time I get a receipt, I just take a picture of it with my camera, and then when I get, and that syncs up to SkyDrive or Dropbox or whatever technology I'm using at the time, and then when I get home, all my receipts are on my computer. A little less pain in the butt than scanning them. I usually still crop them and all that kind of stuff. And but this whole Office Scanner thing now will kick it right into OneNote for you, do all that for you. Probably makes them into PDFs or something tiny like that. So check that out. It's in the App Store. You can download that. I haven't played with it much. I just saw the thing today, but it's pretty cool. So in the chat room, and this is something that comes up, so a couple folks were saying that they never used OneNote much until they got a Surface with a stylus. So a couple things about OneNote, and I don't know how the freemium version is because I've got the full version, but OneNote, as far as I can tell, can do everything. Everything. And I've been using OneNote for like 3 or 4 versions now, and I'm finding things in OneNote now that have been in OneNote forever. So things like you can record voice notes in OneNote, and OneNote will pull the text out of them. You can scan text in OneNote, and it will OCR it. Just all kinds of crazy stuff. So if you're new to OneNote, spend like 5 minutes and poke around, and OneNote has like a little tutorial thing that comes up when you install it the first time, so by all means take a look at that, and they've just got all kinds of ideas, because for most of us we're like, oh, text on a page, this is kind of boring, but it is so much more. It does so much more. And the thing that Naomi Moneypenny was talking about was if you've got a touch device with a stylus, you can actually write on the screen and it'll record it and OCR it, things like that. It's pretty good. Jack mentions that it seems like they're doing this to compete with Evernote. I think you're probably not too far off there. Evernote is a free version of a very similar thing. Matter of fact, it might have been a direct response to OneNote. But Evernote's been out forever. There's like an Evernote online where you can sync all your stuff up, and it runs on your Android phones and your Macs and your toasters and all that kind of stuff. And so I definitely think that OneNote is going for that market, and I think they're smart too, because OneNote is just phenomenal software. So I would be curious to hear what people's experiences are on the Windows side with the freemium version, on the Mac side, and all that. And Enrique Lima in the chat room is keeping me honest. The thing I was talking about that scans stuff is called Office Lens. That's the name for it. But good stuff out there. And this is one of those things. People talk bad about Microsoft, and they complain that Microsoft never innovates and Microsoft's boring and all that kind of stuff. But man, I just don't feel that. I mean, using stuff like OneNote is not boring, and I don't want to say that Microsoft came up with the concept. I don't even know what the time frame is on it, but it is not boring, especially when you couple it with SkyDrive or OneDrive, and your tablet. This is exciting software. This is fun stuff. This isn't just Word and Excel and email and all that. This is good stuff. I would die without OneNote. And I guess another thing that I didn't have in my notes that I'll bring up is they have also opened up the OneNote API. which for those of you that are not developers, and I am not a developer, but I looked API up, that's the application programming interface. And what that gives folks the ability to do is send things, basically program into OneNote. So now you can, and they've got a great tutorial on their site that shows you code and how to do it, but you can do things like have your web page insert things into somebody's OneNote or all kinds of stuff like that. But now OneNote is open, so people can wedge things in there, and it's just, this is fun stuff. This is great, great stuff. Vlad is trying to get himself kicked out of the chat room right now. You were doing so well, Vlad. You wrote that script. You were carried around on people's shoulders, and now I'm gonna have to kick you out of the chat room because you said the D word. You called me a developer, and that's how you get off my Christmas card list, is by saying stuff like that. So check out OneNote. If you're a developer-y type, check out that OneNote API. It looked, fairly, and it's common stuff. It's just a REST interface, and it's just using OAuth. So it's all the stuff you're already using. You just, you connect to REST. You build up a little HTML blob. You shoot it over. OneNote does the rest. This is really cool stuff. Every once in a while, I get super excited about technology, and this is one of those days. So yeah, everybody's saying goodbye to Vlad in the chat room now. Oh, you're gone and done it. So another fun thing that Microsoft came out with, and this isn't out yet, so I can't say that it's free, but this was something that Microsoft first made public at the SharePoint Conference, and there was just too many things last week to talk about for me to cover it. But they introduced two new technologies called Oslo and the Office Graph. And I talked about Oslo a little bit last week. I called it Orca for a little while. That's kind of my pet name for it. But I found a great article on Oslo that came out last week that I wanted to link in the chat room and all that. And it's got a video where one of the guys in the product team talks about it, so it's a good background. So Oslo is one of these things. It's kind of proactive search, and it's from the team that made Fast Search, the team in Norway. And it's this idea that information comes to you instead of you going and looking for information. So you've got this Oslo interface that uses Office Graph in the background, and it will surface things to you that have been shared with you or were shared in meetings you were in, emails you've gotten, things like that. And it's this idea that there's so much information out there. There's so much, just hitting you all day that you can't keep track of it all. So now you can use, well, not now, but you'll eventually be able to use Oslo with Office 365 to have this interface of things that you've been doing recently. So it's really cool. I encourage you to watch the video, look at the screenshots and all that, because it's pretty sweet. Pretty good stuff. So I saw that video. I know I talked a little bit about it last week, but the video is much better. So now on to some actual SharePoint topics. And Enrique brings it up. Orca used to be the code name for Visual Studio. I don't know that that's where I got it from, but curse you for calling me a developer. Close my notes here. I don't have any notes for this one. That's right. So this came up a couple of weeks ago here at work, and it's something I think I've talked about before on the Netcast, but I kind of wanted to go over it again for those of you who didn't catch it the first time. And this is kind of on the heels of the Oslo thing. When Microsoft bought Fast in 2009, it was too late to roll it into SharePoint 2010. And so SharePoint 2010 had the classic search architecture where Foundation had this blah search, and then SharePoint Server had this super cool search, and then there was fast search on top of that. Between SharePoint 2010 and SharePoint 2013, the Fast team got in there and said, all right, get those folks from Bing in here. We're starting from scratch. We're opening up a new project in Visual Studio, and we're rewriting search. We're just starting from the ground. And they rewrote search in SharePoint 2013, and it is amazing. And they pulled in analytics and all these other kind of crazy things. But then they got done, and they're like, oh, we forgot about Foundation. We can't just give this away because Foundation's free. So what they did was they went in and artificially limited the search, the same search you get in SharePoint Server, in Foundation. And it's still pretty cool for a free product, but it's got these weird limitations. And this is what came up lately. Now, we script all of our installs here at Rackspace. We script them within an inch of their lives. And the way this came up was somebody was tweaking the script. They're like, hey, I can't figure out how to script the installation of search in SharePoint Foundation. And it's because there is no way to do that. It must be created with the white wizard. Now, I know some of you are over there raising your hand. Oh, there, it's possible. Yes, a couple of people have figured out how to create search in Foundation with PowerShell. I think Gary LaPointe was the first one I saw that did it. But he used a thing called reflection, which is not in and of itself a bad thing. But Microsoft has come out and said if you create search in Foundation with PowerShell, and we can tell if you did that, then it's not supported. If you call us and you say search doesn't work, we're going to get in there, we're going to see that it was created with PowerShell, and we're going to make you blow it away. So I suppose it's most correct to say there is no supported way to create search in Foundation with PowerShell. It has to be created with the white wizard. Now, I'm not a big fan of the white wizard for a couple of reasons, and in the context of search, now you can run the white wizard after you've done everything else. You don't need to run everything inside of the white wizard. So you can create your Foundation farm with PowerShell, add your service accounts with PowerShell, create your web apps and all that kind of stuff with PowerShell, and then go in and run the white wizard and just create search. Just uncheck everything, just create search. If you have to do it, that's probably the way to do it. But that does a couple of things that I don't like. It creates these databases that have GUIDs in the name, and it doesn't let you define your service accounts in your app pool. It lets you define your service account, but it doesn't let you define your service app pool when it creates it. Now, the service app pool, and boy, is that one a tough one to say. You can go back in later and change that, and I'm mostly sure that you can rename all the databases, though it is a gigantic pain to do that, but you can do it. So not much. And I also read somewhere on the internet, and I don't know if you can trust this or not, but I read somewhere that every time you run the white wizard to create search, it slips Rick Astley videos into your search results unbeknownst to you. It's a horrible thing. So that's why that all happens. I guess my guidance is if you want to build your SharePoint Foundation farm with PowerShell, you have two choices. You can use the PowerShell that's out there to create search, which as far as I know works 100%, but is frowned on by the fine folks in Redmond, or do everything but search with PowerShell and then create search with the white wizard. As far as I know, those are your only two options. Matt Bailey in the chat room is mentioning that the last time he heard search was killing kittens when you or the white wizard was killing kittens when you ran it. That is the farm configuration wizard that kills the kittens. There's a whole family of wizards in SharePoint, and they all do nefarious, horrible things. And so since the gray wizard, the farm configuration wizard, was already killing kittens, the white wizard had to come up with a new gag, and that's the Rick Astley video thing. And it's just exploded. It's all over the internet now. Can't look at a video without it. Okay, so this one was another one that came up with a customer here at the old Rackspace, the Iowa office here, a Rackspace. And this is about how the incoming email service job changed in SharePoint 2013. Now, I'm not a huge fan of incoming email. It just doesn't have enough, I hate to use the word, governance to it. You can't, it's on for the entire farm. You can't, there's just not a lot of things you can't do with it. But we have some customers that are using it, and they enjoy it. And in SharePoint 2010, you could have the incoming email service running on multiple machines in your farm. And then if you had SMTP running on old servers, you could do like a round robin thing with your mail record, your MX record, kind of bear that load out. You could also make it fault tolerant, things like that. And that all worked pretty well in SharePoint 2010. And then SharePoint 2013 came out, and that didn't work anymore. In SharePoint 2013, when the incoming email job, if you had it running on a bunch of servers, it would only ever run on one. and always only ever one, which of course is not very resilient. So turns out the reason for that is because they had some problems initially with SharePoint 2013 where documents would end up getting duplicated if the job kicked off on two servers at the same time. So they decided when SharePoint 2013 came out, they decided to lock that down to one server till they could figure the problem out. And Trevor Seward has a good blog about that on the SharePointFarm.com, and he kind of goes through it, talks about it, and then he's got a follow-up in the December cumulative update to SharePoint 2013. They fixed that, so you can if you want to go back that, have the round robin stuff and all that, you'll need the December cumulative update. I have not checked. I assume that made it into Service Pack 1. The notes for Service Pack 1 say that it includes everything from December on back. So Joanne Klein called me out. The word governance bores me to tears. It absolutely does. I did a pre-con on governance for Tech Ed 2009, and I nearly put myself to sleep. That's how boring governance is for me. But so Surya in the chat room is saying he still sees it with the December cumulative update. So Surya, I'm going to send you to... Trevor Seward has 2 blog posts about it, and he's not in the chat room to defend himself right now, so we can talk badly about it. But I thought that was all fixed. So Surya, if that's not the case... Oh, so Surya is saying you have to stop the incoming email service instance on all your servers and then install the December cumulative update. And then, oh, good little thing. That's good to know. I might add that to my my notes, Surya. I appreciate that. If you don't see that show up in my wiki, Surya, drop me a line. I would love to add that. So, but just that was one of those things that we were kind of kicking around here at Rackspace, and that was one of those things. We've got an email list, and you know, somebody will send something out, and it's just kind of jiggled something free, and I had to figure that out. All right, last SharePoint related topic. This was a fun one we also discovered here with a customer. When you install SharePoint Server, when you're actually installing the software, so setup and blah, blah, when you get to that page that says, do you want to do a complete install or a standalone install, there's another tab there that says File Locations. And a couple of things about this topic. Excuse me. That screen lets you choose where some of the SharePoint Server bits go. This is not a way to move the SharePoint root. The SharePoint root, or the 15 hive, must always be C, program files, common files, Microsoft Shared, web server extensions, blah, blah, blah. That always has to be on the C drive. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Got to be there. This tab, this file location tab, is for a couple of other things. It's for things like where FIM puts all its binary files and where search puts its indexes and things like that. And you can tell that that's what it's for, because if you install Foundation, that tab's not the top part of that tab is gone, because it's the service app stuff that Foundation doesn't have. So you can, when you install SharePoint, you can put all the stuff on a D drive, and you should. You should put it on something other than your C drive. And that gets your indexes and all that kind of stuff off. But another thing that it does, and it's not real forward about, is that it also sets up some temp directories. And that's important because let's say you don't see that tab when you install SharePoint. Next, finish. Hey, SharePoint. And you see it's putting all that stuff on the C drive, and you're like, oh, this is terrible. You can go into search and move that stuff on your own. So after everything's going and you've got index files and you notice your C drive's getting full, you can go into search and you can move the index to another drive. You can move it to the D drive or the E drive or the T drive or whatever. I like having a T drive, name it after myself, all that kind of stuff. But when you do that, it moves the index files, but it doesn't move these little hidden temp directories. And this blog post that I linked here from Christopher Loranger, it gives what some of these paths are, shows the registry keys where they're stored, that kind of stuff. And there's no way to fix, there's no supported way to fix this besides uninstalling SharePoint and just flattening your farm and starting from scratch. So these temp directories might not get huge, but it's kind of where the gatherer brings things in and kind of breaks them up. But kind of the big lesson here is before you install SharePoint Server, know what your drive layout's going to be, have your D or E or whatever drives in place before you lay the bits down, because there's this one specific piece that you can't move after the fact. Doug in the chat room is asking a great question. He says, why do you want to move the temp directories? Performance? Partially performance, because your C drive is doing a lot of things. It's where the OS is churning and SharePoint's going. So you want that I/O to go to those more important operations, because search temp is probably not a real important operation. But more importantly is a drive space thing. Because I know a lot of people look at the minimum requirements for SharePoint and they say, oh, it says here that we need a minimum of an 80 gig C drive. That's huge. I'm only going to give it an 80 gig C drive. And so then as you install updates and that kind of stuff, that 80 gigs gets kind of tight. So I want to move everything I can off of the C drive. So this temp directory is one of them. And I can imagine if you've got huge files that are getting downloaded, that might show up and there might cause you some problems. So again, kind of the lesson here is do a deliberate install, have your drive letters planned out ahead of time, change that tab, and get those files in the right place. And Doug says he always makes his C drive 120 gig. I get the feeling that Doug's trying to be the teacher's pet right now. I can't quite put my finger on exactly what it is, but I get that feeling. And Doug, I will tell you that when I talk to customers or I talk to our sales folks or anything, I tell them that 100 gig is the minimum. And I think you can do a pretty good job of controlling what goes on the C drive. You can move your ULS logs to another drive. You can move your usage logs to another drive. All your IIS stuff, your iNet pub, your IIS logs, you can go to another drive. You can move your page file to another drive. You can move your search stuff to another drive. So you can do a good job. And I think 120 gig gives you plenty of breathing room. But, so here it is. It's SharePoint, it's the year 2014. How many of you right now can point to a SharePoint 2007 farm right now? Raise your hands. How many of you have touched a SharePoint 2007 farm in the last 6 months or a year? Now think about that. SharePoint 2007 came out 7 years ago, and it's still out there. So now imagine that server that you're installing today with the absolute minimum of drive space. What's that going to look like in 2021? How much space is it going to have left? So that's why I tell people, don't just go with the minimum drive space. Now, in the days of virtualization, in theory, you can go in and expand that virtual drive. And if you've got Windows, I think 2008 R2 or later, then you can go through and expand the C drive and fill it, and make it fill up that virtual drive. But the way you find out that your C drive is full is when your server crashes. I mean, that's just, and nobody wants to get there or be that guy. So yes, 80 gig is the minimum, but again, what's that server going to look like in 2021? So I do 100, 120, something like that, and then do everything I can to get those files off of there. It's, and I tell you, I fight with customers about that all the time. In the last week, I've had to explain to a customer why we couldn't just do 80 gig C drives. That's, Vlad brings up a good point. That's a good time for some monitoring software, SCOM or something. Myself, I've written a PowerShell script that goes out to all my servers, gathers all the drive space, makes a nice HTML file, emails it to me. But that's a good one. I knew that you could move those search files, but I didn't know that there were these temp files that were left behind. Okay, man, I made it through all of my topics tonight, and so I think we're done, everybody. Nah, I'm kidding. I know you guys are all really, really looking forward to the Shameless self-promotion bit. I know you're just like, oh my God, what's Todd doing next? So So we will do shameless self-promotion this week. People in the chat room are saying I should share that PowerShell script. It's nothing I'm real proud of. It's not real great, but I will take a look at it and see how horribly embarrassing it is and consider blogging it. But it's it's not going to win any awards or anything like that. It's kind of ugly. But I will, since many of you asked in the chat room, I'm trying to see if anybody used good manners and all that. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see if I can share that. Okay, so what's going next? So the next big thing going on, and we're coming up a little more than a month away, is SP TechCon, and you can find out all about that by going to sptechcon.com. And they just within the last 2 or 3 days here released the schedule for the sessions that are going on at SP TechCon, so you can now start making your plans. Looks like Shane and I are busy Tuesday afternoon doing a half-day upgrade, migration, patching sort of session on Tuesday afternoon. We get Wednesday to recover, and then Thursday we're doing our admin session and one other session, PowerShell maybe. I forget now, but you can find out. I built the anticipation. To find out what that third session is, go out to sptechcon.com. and view by speaker, view by topic, whatever. Now, SP TechCon, again in San Francisco, April 22nd through the 25th. The astute ones of you out there will notice that starts on a Tuesday, which means that I will be flying out there on Monday. Now, I know a bunch of you guys are getting worried. You're like, oh no, that means no Netcast on April 21st. Whatever will we do? So right now I'm working on it. I'm trying to get some space in the Rackspace office in San Francisco to do the Netcast. So not only will we do one, but there'll be space there for people to watch, I think. I'm going to talk to them about that. So if you're going to be at SP TechCon and you're getting in on Monday, I'm probably going to try to throw some kind of a thing at the Rackspace office. Or if you're in San Francisco and not going to the SharePoint Conference, but just want to hang out, I'm going to try to do a thing there. Hopefully it will be more successful than my attempts to do something at the SharePoint Conference. Lori's saying we could do Shane and I in the hotel room. That gets a little creepy. He gets a little handsy in hotel rooms, and you invite the guy back to his hotel room. He gets the wrong idea. You turn the camera on, and he really gets the wrong idea. So I don't know. We'll see. But one thing I wanted to mention is that today is obviously March 17th, 2014. 5 years ago yesterday, March 16th, 2009, was the very first Netcast. My very first Netcast. I did it, 25 feet that way next to next to the cat box and the furnace. But 5 years I've been doing this thing. 5 years this Netcast I've been doing it. So I was planning on doing something special, and then I forgot that this week was the 5-year bit. But yeah, so 5 years. There are a few of you in the chat room who have been here the whole time. I think Lori's been here for all of them for sure. So thanks to everybody for that. But yeah, 5 years of this crud. So here's to 5 more, and we're coming up on 200 Netcasts as well. So Jack is saying I've really moved up. Given how the first few went, there was no other place to go. So funny though, with the first one of the things that is the same is there was a blue sheet behind me. Now it was a blue sheet out there, and it was hanging from the ceiling, and all that. But yeah, we've come a long way. The first week that I did it, I had a Logitech headset on with a boom mic and looked ridiculous. Now I've got this awesome Yeti mic and the pop filter and all this stuff. So we've made a lot of progress. But yeah, 5 years. So thanks to everybody who's made this happen. It's been awesome. Not to derail that, though, we're going to try to do something for SP TechCon. We'll be getting close to 200 there. I think if I stay on track, if I do a Netcast a week of Tech Ed, that will be the 200th one. So we'll see. So SP TechCon. The next thing then is Microsoft Tech Ed. That is May 12th through the 15th in Houston. And Shane and I will be doing a pre-conference session on install, and I think that is the only session that we're doing. I forgot to submit sessions till after the deadline, so we didn't get any sessions, and that is, at least I'd like to think that's why we didn't get any. It isn't just those guys are no fun and no good, and we're not going to have them. But that is May 12th through the 15th, Tech Ed, and that is a great conference because that is going to have SharePoint content, but it's also going to have Windows content, PowerShell content, SCOM content, and Enrique's going to be there. So it's going to be a good time. They always have good parties and things like that. So May 12th through the 15th. You guys have 2 months now to figure that out. So get down there. Then the next conference, I get June off, it looks like. Then in July, I'll be doing the Australian Sharing the Point, or whatever they call those conferences down there. And the first one is July 15th and 16th in Sydney. And then the next week, July 22nd and 23rd, I'll be in Auckland, New Zealand, talking about SharePoint. I don't know what sessions I'm going to be doing just yet. They haven't figured all that out. But I'll be down there. My guess is you can't really keep me away from social things. So if the Sydney SharePoint user group is meeting that week, I'll probably crash their party. Same with Auckland if they've got anything going on down there. So if you're in that area and not going to the conferences, still keep in touch, and I'm sure I'll be doing something down there. So swing by and say hi. And I think that is it for now. So we got the Shameless self-promotion in this time. I got all my stuff. Everything's looking pretty good. Don't forget to go out to sharepoint.rackspace.com and play Fanata Blaster. Tweet out your scores, impress your friends, confound your enemies, all that great stuff. So looks like this week all the production stuff went a lot better. So thank goodness for all that. So again, I'm going to kind of keep playing with the video and the audio. Please give me your feedback. Let me know what you think about all that. I wouldn't have made any of these changes, which I think are all positive, except for feedback from folks like you. So thanks very much for that. Thanks to everybody in the chat room. Might be a record crowd in the chat room right now. You guys stick around. I'll kill the stream, but I'll be in the chat room here for a bit. But thanks everybody in the chat room. Great conversation. I appreciate all that. Thanks to you, the listener, folks suffering through the video or suffering through the audio. I appreciate that. 5 years. Can't believe it. Would have never thought when I started that first one that I'd still be doing this 5 years later, and I couldn't have done it without you guys. So thanks to everybody. That's a wrap for tonight. So thanks, and have a good night.